There's a Transformers movie with darkness in the name, right?
There's a Star Trek movie with darkness in the name.
Who fucking knows?
Isn't that? Oh, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, Dark in the Moon, Age of Extinction,
See?
Last
Dark.
Night. Dark in the Moon.
Yeah, see? I was right. I remembered.
There's a difference between dark and...
But I wasn't saying this is exactly the name. I was saying I remember darkness being in the title of a Transformers movie. So dark is close enough. I already knew that I was off.
Oh, God.
What if I just name my D&D character Starscream? That's a joke. I already gave him a name.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say I have no choice but to stand. Oh, man. We're broken already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What is up, everybody? Welcome to That Wannabe Film Class, the show where we love movies. So each month we choose a theme, and our members bring one movie that fits the theme for us to talk about. Maybe it's a movie they love. Maybe it's a movie they have been dying to see. Maybe it's a movie they just find interesting. I am your host, Ben Bellevue, and I'm joined by the supervillain seducer, my co-host in arms, Chloe Naylor.
That's me. Hello, Ben.
Hello. I don't know why I decided to accept the use of hello from you.
No,
I feel cursed that I've added it to the recording, to the interwebs when this is released.
Mm-hmm. You gotta balance it out since you didn't start with the song, so. That's
true. That is true. I didn't start with the song. I wasn't feeling it today.
No, it's been a long day for us.
It has been a long day. You know, it's the Super Tuesday, Democratic primaries.
True.
I'm watching those numbers tick up. I'm sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real sad.
It's not doing great for our boy Bernie. It's not doing bad. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not doing great.
It's not great.
No.
If I have to relive the 2016 election again, I'm going to die.
I will leave this country.
Let's go. You and me.
I think I've talked about this with you. I will apply for Canadian citizenship.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I can't get that, then I will go to Europe. I don't know where in Europe yet, but Europe.
Yeah, that's Australia. That's nice though.
Australia?
I'd go there.
But it's on fire all the time. And it has giant bugs.
Shit, you're right. All right. Well.
Yeah. Like, look, do I love Love Island Australia? Yes. Is that an enticing reason to go to Australia? A little. But.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway.
See, Canada is the country's name.
Oh, Canada.
Canada is too cold for me. I can't go there, and I just have a thing of hating Europe, so I can't go there either. So.
Don't you already live in the cold?
Yeah, and I hate it here so much.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that.
It's like number one reason I'd move to California. It's warmer there.
See, I think, I thought it was for friendship or like career aspirations or some dumb shit like that.
No, dumb shit like it's warm.
I thought it was because comedy wasn't in Chicago, Chloe.
I gotta go.
Chloe, there's no comedy.
No, there's no comedy as soon as I leave.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chloe, This month we have a new theme. It's a new month for us here at That Wannabe Film Class. You and I. We are talking about Criterion movies, and we're talking about my pick for Criterion movies, 12 Angry Men. Now, for listeners who were not versed in the term Criterion when I mentioned it last episode, if you haven't heard that yet, or if you're just tuning in, hi, welcome. You might be asking, what is a Criterion movie? Chloe, I gave you a description of Criterion movies. Do you remember what that is?
You gave me a description of Criterion movies?
Last episode.
You think I remember anything that we do here?
That's why I was asking. I definitely didn't. A Criterion movie. So Criterion is a company.
Yeah.
They are a company that has existed since the 80s, I believe 1984. And what they do is they publish, and by publishing, preserve movies that they consider important. They make sure that their publishes are the best edits they can find. So they generally will like go back in and make sure it's like the highest visual quality, the highest audio mix quality wise. And then they release it for the general public to purchase, along with special features and supplements, which is when I say supplements, I usually mean like there's a little booklet of essays that you can read that comes with it. Sometimes it's like a little, like how video games used to have guides in them. Mm-hmm. It's like that, but the guide is essays.
Ooh, okay.
For those film nerds out there, you know?
Oh man.
Yeah, for those losers.
For those wannabe film nerds.
Well, I guess. Sure. They also release their movies sometimes in bomb ass cases, like Godzilla, the original Godzilla movie I have. And when you open it, it's like cardboard. And when you open it, there's a fold out Godzilla that pops up like a pop up book.
Oh.
Yeah, it's dope.
I want
They
it.
also, I have the Princess Bride on Criterion.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being like a typical movie case, it's a hardcover book.
Oh.
So it's a hardcover book case style that's like thin like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's purple. It's gorgeous because they have special art for every Criterion release, so it doesn't look like a typical movie release.
Okay.
And so it's like purple with gold designs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you open it, and the first part is the essays in it as if it's a book, so they like are attached to the case. And then you flip to the end, and it's the little thing holding the movie. It's beautiful.
Huh. That
I love it. It's
sounds amazing.
Yeah. Or like Moonrise Kingdom. That one is a more traditional box, but it has like little material from the movie. So it has like a map of the island and it has postcards from the island and stuff.
Huh.
So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. If you like, some of them are typical. 12 Angry Men, the movie we're talking about, is one that I own. And that is kind of just like a typical movie case with a little like essay book. Yeah. But some of them are super cool.
Nice. Very nice.
Criterion's dope. I love Criterion. Sounds
dope. I don't think I've heard of it before the podcast, so.
It's the kind of thing that you really only hear about if you go to Barnes & Noble, they sell Criterion. You've definitely seen their Criterion section. You probably don't connect it.
Right.
Or like fully acknowledge the name, which makes sense. Like I wouldn't either if I wasn't a film nerd, but you can't survive in the film world without knowing what Criterion is. Fair. It's just, I own a Criterion t-shirt.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nerd.
Yeah. Yeah. They also have a streaming channel now called the Criterion channel that I love. It is full of a lot of their movies. It's got a lot of really old, cool ones. It's got a lot of the Akira Kurosawa films. So like Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Hidden Fortress, which inspired Star Wars. And I'm saying a lot of film nerd things to the blockbuster head of the podcast. I realize.
I recognize the movie names. I know. I've seen video essays. I know some things.
And it's also, so The Mandalorian
is a show. Yes.
So, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy in Mandalorian who's like the boss that sends Mando off to get Baby Yoda, who works for the like remnant of the Empire, the old man. That man is a major director in like art house film world, whose name is either Werner Herzog or Werner Herzog. I do not know which pronunciation is correct.
I don't know either. Yeah.
Yep. But they were interviewing him and they're like, oh, do you watch Disney Plus? Do you watch Netflix? Like, are you big on streaming? Because obviously Mandalorian is Disney Plus. And he's like, I only watch the Criterion channel because every movie on it is amazing.
Fair enough. Not Parasite's a Criterion movie. It's perfect.
Or pretty near. Like, it's also cool because it has a lot of like other countries. It's one of the best ways to get some foreign films released in America. Parasite and Mysteries of Murder, Bong Joon-ho films, are coming to it soon, which I'm super pumped for. Anyway, that's Criterion. I love Criterion a lot. And it's just a fun way, I think, to like highlight some excellent films, some important films, some cool films. And today we are talking about 12 Angry Men. Before we talk about 12 Angry Men, though, I just want to say, rest in peace, Logan Wilkinson.
God, we'll never forget.
For audiences, if you're wondering, you may have noticed that Logan has not been around the last episode. He's also not here this episode. Logan is stepping back from that Wannabe film class. Did we say this on the podcast already? I can't remember if it was on recording or off.
I don't think that we did last week.
I don't think that we did. But okay, we may have said it the week before. I don't remember. I know we talked about it with him the week before, but the line between what was recorded and what was talked about is like, it's don't know what it is. Anyway, point is, Logan, he's out.
Gone.
He's leaving.
Yeah.
He's stepping back from that Wannabe film class so that he can focus more on the other podcasts for that nerdy site that he's hosting, focus more on his writing, and also focus on, like, you know, his life. He has a day job and a girlfriend and stuff, things to do. We don't get paid for this. Wish that we did.
Yeah, we just get paid.
That'd be amazing. Can you imagine someone who gets paid to do this?
To podcast all day? No, I can't imagine. Who would do that?
Cannot. I mean, I would do that.
No, yeah, sounds like a pretty good deal.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good time.
Oh, God.
All this research would be, like, financially worth it.
True. Instead, we're just, you're just dying.
Yeah.
No compensation.
On a constant basis.
Yeah. That's a mood.
Yeah. So, Logan, we'll miss you. If anyone is wondering, guys, what does that mean for the structure of your podcast? Because it's been, so far, 3 hosts. Each host chooses a movie, and then you have a guest. How will it work now? We do not know.
Awesome. I thought you were going to give an answer there, and I was really like, did we decide on something? And I don't remember.
No, we didn't.
All right, cool.
We'll find out. We'll experiment. We'll fiddle around. We'll see what happens. You know, the world is our oyster.
Truly it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Chloe?
Yeah.
What did you know about this movie going into it? I know I mentioned a couple things briefly, but did you have, like, any ideas about it? Any impressions? Were you like, oh God, another 1950s movie? Ben, what the fuck? Stop this.
Yes. And that's when I first looked it up, because before I've heard the title before, but I always assumed it was a Western movie. Wild West.
I get that. It sounds like Magnificent Seven.
You know, like all the numbers, like, those are all like, you know, cowboy movies.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking we were going into. I'm like, oh, no, not at all.
And you're like, oh, it's set in one room.
It's in
for almost
one
the entire
room.
Time.
Yes, it's one conversation the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you, Ben, for this. This is definitely my speed, right up my alley of movies I love. Thank you. You know me so well.
I've just really gone for, like, your bread and butter.
Yeah.
The things you're known for. Like, so many people sit around, they're like, oh, she's the General Grievous girl, or oh, she's the villain fucker. But no, we all know that deep down, you're the bottle episode, hour-and-a-half long room convo girl.
It's my favorite genre of movie. It's so great.
So, I am curious, because, like, normally I wait until we do the whole recap, and I'm like, what'd you think about it? What'd you think about it? Just, like, briefly.
It's a movie that happened where things kind of happened.
Yeah.
Was I a fan? I don't think I was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was on the fence of which way I thought you'd go, because I thought you'd either, like, love it, where you'd be like, oh shit, like, because you liked Some Like It Hot. I thought, and obviously Some Like It Hot is a lot more, like, slapstick. Yeah. But I thought you still might fall into that where you're like, oh, like, 50s, cool movie, like, it can be really funny at times. It can be really funny at times. I don't know if you agree with that. But yeah, I wasn't sure. I was not sure.
It has its moments. I think overall, I don't know if I'd willingly go back and watch it, but
sure.
There are a few moments I'm like, oh, okay, I like that, you know, which we'll mention later in the podcast.
Yeah. So before we dive into who's in this movie, what they do, who they are, all these things, obviously I chose this movie. Why did I choose this movie? Well, let me tell you, Chloe.
Oh, boy.
Because it's one of the best fucking movies I've ever seen. This movie is a masterpiece. I know you don't agree with me, and that's okay. I don't care.
See that it's objectively good. I just don't like it.
It's so good. Okay. So I don't know how to talk about it without going into, like, all the details that we'll be talking about later. So I'm just going to, like, stop right here. But basically, 12 Angry Men might be the best written movie I've ever seen. If it isn't, it's close to it. It's probably in my top 5 movies of all time. I love it so much. It's what makes me passionate about, like, screenwriting, because every time I see it, I'm like, they told an entire story in one room for an hour and a half. Like, because I've seen bottle episodes, but bottle episodes in TV shows where they're, like, episodes that almost entirely take place in one location are usually, like, 20-minute long episodes, 40-minute long episodes. This was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love it so much.
I'm glad you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, on that note, let's talk about the people who got this movie made. Now, normally I kick it off with the director, but this time, and we'll get to the director because he's possibly my favorite director of all time.
Nice.
But, like, okay, I'm gonna stipulate. He's my favorite pure director of all time because there are other people like Rian Johnson who I love who are like writers and directors, but Sidney Lumet, who directed this, is a director. He's written a couple things, but for the most part, he just functions as the director.
Gotcha.
And that's what I mean when I say that. So this movie was produced by Reginald Rose and Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda is also the protagonist, juror number 8. Do you know anything about Henry Fonda?
He's nice to look at.
He is nice to look at. You know who else is nice to look at?
Huh. Who?
His daughter.
Oh.
Do you know who his daughter is?
Who is his name?
Can you guess from the last name?
Am I completely drawing a blank on every single actress ever? Yes.
Jane Fonda.
That makes sense. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely forgot about her. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Henry Fonda rules. I love him.
Yeah.
This is the first movie he produced, and it was the only movie he produced from what my brief research showed. If he produced anything after this, it definitely was like not as big of a deal because he kind of hated being a producer, which is according to Sidney Lumet, because Henry Fonda was a very like kind of shy guy, and being producer meant he had to watch himself in the dailies when they were like looking over the footage, and he hated that. So he walked in the first day, sat there, watched it for like 10 minutes, touched Sidney Lumet on the shoulder, went, "I'm leaving. This was amazing. And left."
All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, so Henry Fonda was a big actor at the time. He decided to produce this. He produced it because he watched what this movie is based on. What this movie is based on is 12 Angry Men, the teleplay. Now, that is... Do you know what a teleplay is?
No.
Okay. So, a teleplay... So the teleplay was written by Reginald Rose, who was also the co-producer with Henry Fonda and the writer of this version of 12 Angry Men, which is fairly similar overall. But basically, a teleplay is a thing that happened a lot in the past where, you know those, when they do like, oh, Grease live on NBC.
Yeah.
That's a teleplay.
Okay.
And that used to be a big deal in the 50s.
Gotcha.
So a lot of shows were just like weekly teleplays. And that's how 12 Angry Men started. And it was like set in one room because they were in New York City. They had limited space and they're like, we'll make a story set in a room. And the way it was shot was like, it was an hour long and they would shoot it live. They would cut to commercial live. Actors have to just like stay in their position, wait for the commercial to end, come back, and then go again.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was intense. So that was what Reginald Rose came up doing. And this is also kind of where... So Henry Fonda saw that and he was like, I think this would be a good like feature length movie. I think this would be a good art house kind of film, you know? And he got together with Reginald Rose, put up together a production, went to UA, which is United Artists, which is a production company started by many, many significant figures. Off the top of my head, Charlie Chaplin was one of them. And United Artists produced the film. Now, going all the way back, as I said, directed by Sidney Lumet, who is... Oh, he's so good, Chloe.
Yeah?
He's so good. So
tell me all about it, Ben.
Sidney Lumet started off as a Broadway director, or an off-Broadway director, sorry. He grew up in the theater. He grew up as an actor and then an off-Broadway director. His parents came from Yiddish theater in New York. And he went from doing theater to being a TV director, where he was known for shooting very quickly, which is to say he like... You know how a lot of directors will talk about like, oh, we got this coverage and this coverage and this coverage, then we edit it together in the room?
Yeah.
Sidney Lumet did not do that.
Oh.
Sidney Lumet would kind of figure out the exact shots he wanted and how they would weave together in his head, and then be like, I need this shot, this shot, this shot, and this shot, and that's all I need.
Okay. Nice.
Which gave him like very little room to fuck up, but meant that he could go very quickly. He also tried to use the same camera setup for as long as he could. So I'm going to talk a lot about directing in this because I think Sidney Lumet's very good at it, and we haven't really talked about directing. We mostly talked about story in this podcast so far. So the way Sidney Lumet set up a shot is when you're filming a scene, especially in like a small room, but really anywhere, you need lights. The problem with lights, though, is like, for example, you're sitting in a room right now. You have a light pointed at you. That works from the angle that your camera is facing.
Yeah.
But if you were doing a full scene where people were moving around, you would need to move the lights.
True.
But you can't just like easily move the lights, because generally the way a film set works is anything you don't see on screen is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's lights everywhere. So I was just on a film set this week, and we had to wait 30 minutes between shots because they had to keep moving the lights for a different setup. And like, it's a very short scene,
Mm-hmm.
but because we needed different coverage, we needed that. And the way Sidney Lumet worked was basically in this room, he set up the lighting for one wall and then shot everything that took place on that wall. And then he set up the lighting for the next wall
Mm-hmm.
and then shot everything that took place on that wall throughout the entire movie. So instead of like trying to do scene by scene, he did it just like all the way through on one wall, all the way through on the next, all the way through on the next. There's a lighting change when it starts to rain later. They did have to like do it again, but in total, it was like 8 setups.
Okay.
Which is cool and speeds things up.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you'll see things like moving kind of like back and forth because chronologically it makes sense, but efficiency wise, it does not.
Gotcha.
He specialized in being an actor's director, which basically means that like some directors are very good at like camera and all that kind of stuff. And that's what they focus on, like technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
Sidney Lumet specialized in working with actors, and he was kind of beloved by a lot of actors for his ability to work with them and to get good performances out of them, and also just be like empathetic and nice and make their jobs fun.
Nice.
And because of that, he's worked with huge names such as Al Pacino and Marlon Brando and a lot of other actors who I can't think of off the top of my head.
Cool.
He credits his organizational skills to when he was working as a TV director, because he had to balance like 8 different projects in his head at once, because he was working on 2 TV shows a week. So on Sunday, he would shoot a show to be released that day. And then on Tuesday, he would shoot an episode to be released that day. But it was weekly. So because of that, he had to, while shooting one, be prepping the actors for the next week's, prepping the costuming and set decoration for the week after that, and going over the script for the week after that. So basically, he was always working on 8 different things at once.
Oh my God.
And he was like, yeah, after that, once I got into movies, it was a breeze. Everyone's like, how are you so good organizationally? And he's like, because TV was hell.
That makes sense.
12 Angry Men was his first feature film.
Very nice. Well, he knocked it out of the park first time.
He did. He was like in his 30s, like young 30s when he made this. He was a youth. And it was his first film. He was hired for 2 reasons. One, because he had experience working with Rose, the writer, when he was doing TV, because Rose was primarily a TV writer. And also because he was cheap. And this movie was made for no money. Very little money.
Can imagine.
Yep. Other notable movies he has done are Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, The Verdict, Network, Murder on the Orient Express, the 1970s one, and The Wiz, the Wizard of Oz adaptation with Michael Jackson as the Scarecrow.
Wow.
I learned that today.
That unlocked a memory I didn't know I had. Okay. Wow. Jesus. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He's also worked on a couple other films that I'll mention later, but that's for trivia.
Nice.
He has made light entertainment such as The Wiz, but he's best known and he's primarily acclaimed for his like psychological dramas, which is, what this one is.
Mm-hmm.
He is considered a legend for how he defined the way we visually think of New York City. And that's something that a lot of famous directors and people have talked about, namely Martin Scorsese, who noted that he enhanced the vision of the city. Other people have said nice things about him, but I don't like them, so I'm not going to reference them.
Okay.
Yep. He's very progressive overall, and primarily is known for not giving a shit. Nice. Most notably, when he was a TV director, he worked a lot with blacklisted writers from the McCarthy era that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Because, they were like, a lot of them got away with writing because they used pseudonyms and lied about who they were.
Gotcha.
But they weren't lying to him. He was kind of just like, yeah, as long as you can get it past the producers, I don't give a shit.
Nice.
He's very progressive. And you see that also in a lot of the movies he made, which are very politically driven films a lot of the time. Yeah.
Cool.
That is Sidney Lumet. This movie is written by Reginald Rose, who is considered one of the great live television writers, so like teleplays, but he's also one of the least well known. He is very interested in justice, which you can definitely see from watching 12 Angry Men. And he also created a show in the 60s called The Defenders, which is, according to my research, one of the most respected shows of the 1960s. So he did pretty well for himself overall.
Nice.
Also, he got the idea for this movie from sitting in a jury for 8 hours arguing. And he was like, this is drama.
Oh, right.
I could use this.
Then he made a banger of a movie.
Yep. The cast is primarily 12 people. There's a couple others, so I'm not going to talk about them because 12 is already a lot to go through.
True.
Number 1 is Henry Fonda. As I mentioned, he is the father of Jane Fonda. She once asked him about his acting process, and his response was, I don't know. I think about my wife. I stand there.
All right.
I love him. I love Henry Fonda.
That's hilarious.
So much. He is considered one of classic film's greatest stars. He's also, there's a theater in Los Angeles named after him, the Fonda Theater. I've been there for, I think, an Ally and AJ show. Definitely a concert. And also, There's a concert there on Friday with my favorite band, and I can't go, and I am sad.
What band?
Lawrence.
Oh, I know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of their songs on my
I love them a lot.
place. Nice. All right, well, too bad.
Ooh, which one?
Casualty.
Casualty is pretty good. I can recommend better ones. Superficial, great.
Yeah.
Anyway, all listeners should listen to Lawrence. They're amazing. They just released a new song called The Weather, and it's adorable.
Ooh, okay, I'll listen to it.
It's like a breakup song.
Okay.
Like a sad breakup song where it's like, we still love each other, but you're gone, and now I'm sad.
I'm in. All right.
It's so cute.
I will listen to it immediately.
And they're the ones we talked about last week. Duh.
Oh, yeah.
Duh.
We've had this conversation before.
We've had this conversation so many times.
It's fine.
Who knows what we talk about anymore?
Because we've had this conversation about, like, oh, I want, because you're going to go to, like, 2 concerts in a row. We're trying to figure out going.
Yeah. Henry Fonda has also re-teamed with Sidney Lumet after this movie to make Failsafe, another Sidney Lumet movie. Sidney Lumet's made a lot of movies. He was very prolific. We also have Lee J. Cobb playing juror number 3, the antagonist, I guess is the best way to call him. Mm. He is most well known for On the Waterfront and The Exorcist. We have Joseph Sweeney as juror number 9. That's the old man. Mm-hmm. And he is one of the 2 actors who carried over from the original teleplay.
Huh. Look at that.
We also have Jack Klugman as juror number 5. He starred in The Odd Couple after this movie. This movie didn't have a lot of like big name actors. A lot of them came from theater, but it made a lot of them. So a lot of them have like significant success after this film.
Nice.
Or like some success at least. George Voskovic played juror number 11. That's the immigrant. And he is the second actor that carried over from the teleplay.
Okay.
We also have John Fiedler as juror number 2. That's the kind of like small, like high-voiced man. Mm-hmm. He, continuing a trend we had from last week, he voiced Piglet. We've got all the Winnie the Pooh actors in here. Aww. You can totally hear it once you think about it.
100%, yeah. I can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have Edward Binns as juror number 6. He has acted in a lot of Sidney Lumet's films. We also have Martin Balsam as juror number 1, Robert Weber as juror number 12, Jack Warden as juror number 7. Oh, I forgot to mention Martin Balsam, juror number 1, the person in charge of the room. I forget what they're called. He was the detective in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Oh. So that's like a big role.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Okay.
And he had a significant role in Archie Bunker, the TV show. He was like 3rd in the cast list, I think.
Nice.
We have Ed Begley as juror number 10. I don't know Ed Begley super well, but he's the father of Ed Begley Jr., who is an actor that I could not like tell you a specific thing. He's in Arrested Development as a supporting act, guest star. That's the word. Okay. He's in Arrested Development as a guest star a bunch of times. He's been in a lot of other things as a guest star a bunch of times. He's a face where you go, oh, that guy.
Okay. Yeah.
We also finally have E.G. Marshall as juror number 4. He played the lead in The Defenders and the TV show. And he was the president in Superman 2.
Nice.
This has been our cast. This has been our director. I talked about him a lot.
Can tell you're a fan.
With all that said, I am. Also, just like he's a very significant figure within the classic film scene.
Gotcha.
Sidney Lumet is very important to movies.
Okay.
So with all that said,
Understandable.
Chloe,
Yes.
what happens in this movie?
Oh, Ben, what happens with these 12 men that are very angry?
Quite angry.
They're quite angry, but not yet. We're 1950s. We're in a courthouse. Judge is bored out of his fucking mind, apparently. He's like, I need you 12 dudes to go back there, decide if this 18-year-old kid is guilty of killing his father or not.
Yep.
And like, it has to be unanimous. You all have to agree one way or the other. Otherwise, don't want to hang the jury.
Mm-hmm.
So, they'll go back there. Let's see, what evidence they have. They have the testimony from the neighbor across the street who said she didn't see it.
Saw him.
She saw him
No, she said
run
she saw
away.
him. No, she saw him kill him.
Oh, she saw him kill him. Okay.
So the neighbor across the street saw him. I've seen this movie many times.
Yes.
The neighbor across the street saw the boy stab his father and then run away.
Yes.
Like out of the house. The man who lives. Yeah, the old man who lives below the apartment heard him and then went to his front door and saw the boy running down the stairs after after he heard the boy yell, "I'll kill you," and then a thump. So he went to his door, opened it, saw the kid running down.
Gotcha.
They also have the knife, which they have testimony that says this kid, they have testimony from a shop owner saying like, yes, this kid bought this exact knife from me not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are like the three big pieces of evidence.
Yes. Knife, by the way, looks sick as hell.
The knife is very cool.
Very cool looking. So they're like, all right, first things first, what do we all think? They go around the room. They all think he's guilty except for number 8. That is our favorite person. He's like
the hot one.
He's a hot one. He's a good looking one. Yeah. He's like.
Also, I like. I love this opening scene. First of all.
Oh yeah.
I just want to point out for if anyone decides to like go back and watch this, just from because again, I love this movie as screenwriting. I also love this movie in terms of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big rules in screenwriting that I've talked about on this podcast before is like your character's lines should almost always emphasize who they are as a person, but especially their opening lines. And this beginning of this movie does such a good job of you can kind of tell exactly what each character is going to be like from their opening lines. You have the ad executive or agent or whatever he is. And you're like, oh, he's like super talkative and doesn't really care. You have the piglet guy where you're like, he's kind of back and forth because he doesn't really like have strong convictions. He's just kind of like interested. You have your antagonist, obviously, who's like, this kid did it. I hate him. Yeah. You have the foreman. That's what he's called. You have the jury foreman where you see like he's very much in charge of and like trying to be organized and just trying to get things done and be efficient and like do his job well. Mm-hmm. And you have 12 people crammed in a room, and the fact this movie somehow efficiently tells you who all of them are to the degree you need at least is brilliantly well done. And I love it so much.
True. I agree with you there.
Also, it also is smart because it does it for juror number 8 for Henry Fonda's character, but it does it by not giving him dialogue because you see all of these characters and you see their faces and you see them talking. You see like what they're interested in. Mm-hmm. And Henry Fonda's character spends the entire time looking outside the window away from all of them. These guys just like hanging around, shooting the shit, not really like caring, right? Finding this more like interesting than anything. Mm-hmm. And Henry Fonda's the only one who's like not. Juror number 8's the only one who's not letting himself be caught up in that. He's looking out the window. He's being contemplative. He's not taking this lightly. And also, he's the only person whose face you don't see because everyone else is like facing the camera and he's always facing away. So we kind of establish you immediately notice him because you don't notice him. And if you just had him sitting in the room with everyone not talking, your eye wouldn't really be drawn to him because you wouldn't notice. But because he's facing away and everyone else isn't, he sticks out to you. And it's so good. It's such brilliant filmmaking. Cinema
at its finest.
Cinema. Anyway, continue.
Yes. So he questions whether we can really trust the witnesses and how reliable they are. And also, like, you know, was this switchblade really rare? Because, hey, look, I have another one, right? We can't vote because reasonable doubt exists. So he's like, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
We have hung the jury. Perfect. So he's like, how about the rest of you guys write your little answers on a paper, and then if it's all guilty, he'll change his mind.
Yes.
We get a not guilty vote. So, okay, cool. More fighting. And they're just getting angrier, Ben.
Yeah, they're just getting angrier.
They're just getting angrier. 3 is like, hey, 5, you grew up in a slum just like this kid. So I think you changed your vote because you feel bad for him now. And
because they haven't, because at this point, because it was a piece of paper, the room does not know who changed their vote. They just know someone anonymously changed their vote to not guilty.
Right.
For audiences listening who may not have seen the movie, I just want to make sure they're clear.
Yes. Until 9 reveals that he's the one that changed his vote. He's like, maybe we should talk about it,
Yeah. Because that's the important thing is, like, one of the things I love about this movie is that it's not Henry Fonda being like, this kid is innocent, and the rest of them being like, no, he's guilty. It's Henry Fonda. I'm just going to keep calling him Henry Fonda.
That's fine.
It's Henry Fonda being like, hey, we have a social responsibility to this kid. If we vote him guilty, he will be killed. And you're all just kind of like taking this lightly and saying, oh, he's definitely done it. But I'd like to sit here and think about it more. So, like, when he's saying not guilty, he's not saying I'm voting not guilty because I don't think the kid did it. He's saying I'm voting not guilty because if I vote guilty, it's 12-0 and we hang him without even discussion. And that's just, it's such an interesting thing where, like, throughout the entire movie, he's basically going, I don't know if the kid is innocent. I just want us to think all of this through.
Exactly, because it's a human being's life on the line. So, like,
yeah.
You're choosing
and also
it.
Reasonable doubt. Right. Reasonable doubt's important. And, like, we even nowadays in like the public consciousness, whenever someone's considered not guilty, whenever someone's deemed not guilty, there always be people going like, oh, look, that means they didn't do it. And it's like, that's not what it means.
No.
It means there was reasonable doubt. Someone can not be sentenced to jail and still be a shitty person who did something. I'm not saying the kid did do it, but there are times where shitty people do get off because there wasn't enough evidence. And then people are like, look, they're innocent. It's like, that's not what that means.
No. Well, people are dumb. So,
yeah. Also, you mentioned the one guy because he revealed that he came from the slums, and
yes,
I love how, I don't love, but I find it interesting how this movie came out in 1957. So that's 60 plus years ago, 63 years ago, 62 if you want to consider like months specifically, but whatever. And there's that line where he's like, hey, I'm kind of hurt by you acting like people from the slums are all like criminals. Right. And they're like, let's not be so sensitive. I'm like, we never change.
You're right.
People just don't change. They literally use the don't be a snowflake argument just with different words.
Crazy how the same, exact same. It's wonderful.
But it's also like, it's also crazy that people act like it's a generational thing. They're like, oh, like the new generation is like so sensitive. But it's not. It's just you always will have people accusing another group of being too sensitive when they're hurt by something. This has been a cultural problem for a long time. There's so much political commentary from this movie that I will get into eventually. But continue with your recap. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So 8, Harry Fonda. If we switch back and forth, 8 is Harry Fonda. So everyone knows. He says Henry says, passing train was going by at that same time that the kid stabbed his dad, so that there was no way that the one witness heard him say, I'll kill you, and the thump of a body over the roaring train, which I get. So 5 is like, you know what? You're right. 11, same thing. He's like, yeah, we'll change our vote. He's not guilty. 5 changed his vote because of that. 11 changed his vote because believe the defendant. Oh, he went. Hold on.
For audiences, Chloe's looking over a Wikipedia article because she didn't write this in her own words.
No, I didn't, because there's so many people and words and, words.
So Do you want me to like try and get this on track for a sec?
Yeah, you do that. Well, I can
Okay.
figure out where we're at.
So basically, what we have here, I'm gonna see if we have anything. I want that switch knife. Did I say that already?
We talked about how cool it was. It's pretty cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I tried Googling it. There are switchblade enthusiasts out there who cannot figure out where this knife is from.
All right.
So it's just like, damn.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because it's cool.
Yeah.
Also, I just love this movie. So like on that level, I want it.
Fair.
This movie does such a good job of using people's like pettiness and need to talk to create conflict because like, okay, so this is going a little bit further back, but in the beginning, before we even have like the knife being shown and we have like, oh, how did this guy hear it over the L train? We had juror number 8, Henry Fonda, being like, I think we need to talk about it more. And they come to the idea of like, okay, let's go around the room and everyone present their case as to why they think this guy is guilty. And it's so interesting because that takes up like 20 minutes of the movie, probably. I didn't do the actual math, but it takes up a significant chunk. A lot of the opening of this movie is just them going around the room and talking about why they think the kid is guilty and establishing a lot of the facts that we end up using later on in the movie. But it would be so not easy because it'd be a bad movie, so you couldn't really end up doing it. But in terms of just like skill, it'd be so easy to just kind of like info dump. Okay, this guy says this thing, this guy says this thing, this guy says this thing, and now we know the facts of the case. But this movie doesn't do that because it's so driven in like the chaos of the room and the chaos of these people and their pettiness and their desire to jump in and interrupt and just like talk over each other and like how they'll be distracted. The ad guy will be like, hey, look at this doodle I did for a box of rice cereal. I did the ad for this, and it's just like these people are so real.
Oh yeah.
Like the way they talk just feels so much like the way people actually talk in a room. And it's not that people usually feel unreal to me when I watch a movie, but there is something so jarringly human about the way all of them behave.
True. Very true. I can tell you I love this movie. I can tell.
I love it so much.
I'm glad you do. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyways, Henry also points out people often say, I'm going to kill you without literally meaning it. And you know what? He's right because I say it all the time. Do I really mean it? Yeah. We'll see.
I thought about killing a man like 3 times this week.
Oh, I know. I told you. Should have floored it. Earlier. Exactly.
I should have floored it.
Should have floored it. Oh my gosh. Then him, 5 and 6 also question one of the witnesses' ability to get up and shuffle to the door after hearing the father's body hit the floor. Because
he has a limp.
And they time it. It's like, 41 seconds. And it's like, he can't make it there fast enough to see him run away.
There's no way.
There's no way. You're lying. Well, 3 is pissed off by this. And, 8's like, you're a fucking sadistic public avenger. Remember that part exactly. So then 3's fucking tries jumping in.
Yeah, you heard sadist and went, okay. And then you heard public avenger and you're like, Marvel.
Oh, Marvel. Okay, you got me there.
Where's Loki when I want him?
Exactly. Hello. No Loki here. Anyways, 3 tries jumping Henry and he's like, I'll kill you. And 8's like, you don't mean it though, do you? And he's like, well, 2 and 6 like
got him there.
And then they changed their votes. And now it's an even.
There's so much hypocrisy in this movie. No. But like, also, this is something that goes for the movie as a whole. I love that the movie does a really good job of like not condemning any of its characters except for one. We'll get to him. But overall, it's like, hey, like at the end of the day, they're all civil with each other for the most part. Like they might fight and yell and argue in the room, but like once they leave, they're decently civil with each other. None of them take it too much to heart what anyone's saying. And no one is like inherently bad or inherently good. Except for one. Again, we'll get to him. Yeah. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, like people are hypocrites. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the great line too, where they're in the bathroom. First of all, is that how paper towel holders used to look? Did you notice that?
That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Is that how they used to be?
I guess.
for audiences who have not seen this movie, the paper towel holders in the bathroom are like, instead of it being the paper towel just like drops down and then you like pull it, it's the paper towel drops down and then loops back up into the machine. So it's like a hoop, I guess is the best way to call it, like a U shape of the paper towel.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a weird feature of this movie or if that's just like the way they were back then.
Maybe. I'll have to look up
Things
paper
to
towel
discover.
holders now from the 50s.
We're doing the important research on this podcast.
Exactly.
So there's that moment in the room where he's talking to, I forget which juror. I think juror number 6. And juror number 6, he's like, oh, well, suppose this, suppose that. And juror number 6 is like, well, I'm not good at supposing. I'm just a working man. But suppose he is guilty and you let him off. And that's just like, this movie deals with the gray areas so well. It never paints someone as like purely the hero or purely the villain, except for one.
Well,
And it's just, it's so good.
Yeah.
Also in there, and he's like, I'm a salesman. This is a different guy. This is juror number 7. But he's like, I'm a salesman. I made $27,000 last year selling marmalade. Not too bad, supposing marmalade and all. And I was like, all my favorite movies are connected.
God, it's all connected. Wow.
Paddington, where are you?
And then he shows up and he's like, I can't be here because I'm too much of a good person.
Damn, you're right.
You know? Yeah.
They're like, but Paddington, do you think he's guilty? And he's like, I can't condemn him to death. And it's like, but do you think he's guilty, Paddington?
He's avoiding the question. Oh, God.
And then he's like, when you're kind and polite, and they're like, but is he guilty, Paddington? I want a Paddington movie where he's on a jury and the person is actually guilty, but he has to like grapple with the moral ramifications of condemning them to death.
Okay, gray morality doesn't exist when it comes to Paddington because he's such just a pure force of good.
Yeah.
You know? He can't exist anywhere.
Okay, here's my movie pitch.
Okay.
Paddington enters the jury. Paddington is confronted with a system where someone would be condemned to death. I don't know if that's actually like possible to like know someone would be condemned to death in the modern law system. But like,
I don't know.
If it is impossible, then put it in the past. I don't know, man. Point is, Paddington is in this system. He's on the jury. He knows he'd be condemning this person to death. And you know how like Paddington 2 starts with wanting a pop-up book and it ends with him on like in jail and then on a train heist thing. Or you know how Legally Blonde 2 starts with like animal testing and then ends with her considering running for president?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to get.
Okay.
We're going to start with Paddington just going to jury duty. And this movie will end with Paddington reforming the prison system and removing death sentences.
Perfect. I'll vote for Paddington.
Yep.
Yeah.
A vote for Paddington is a vote for Marmalade.
True.
And a vote for Marmalade is a vote for kindness. And sugar.
Back to the opposite of that with these dozen angry men in this room. And they're talking about how well this dude can stab his father, you know.
And from what angle?
From what angle? Because the kid is 7 inches shorter than his dad. Which... It's because he stabbed... Yeah, no.
Oh, boy.
Small boy. So the way the stab wound happened, he couldn't have stabbed it that way. He had to stab upwards. But that's not... You know, that's not how it... not how it works.
What?
You know, I don't know.
What? That's not what happened.
What?
What?
They stab... No, yeah.
The stab wound was going down.
Yeah, and then he was like,
Yeah.
if he did it, he would have to stab upwards.
Not have to.
Well, no, it'd be more likely, though.
Yeah. Because it's like... Because what they were saying was, oh, if I was stabbing him, I'd be doing it this way. And that would fit with the way the stab wound was. And then juror number 5, the guy from the slums, was like, have you ever seen people use switchblades? No one holds it like that. And this kid is from the slums, too. He would know that. So they're not saying... Not to correct you, I'm sorry. But
No,
they're not saying...
that's fine. I misspoke. I didn't mean, like... I meant underhand up, or... That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they're saying is like, not that he would have to because of his height, but just like, yes, it might be natural for most people using a knife to stab the way that would inflict the wound that way. And obviously someone did presumably stab the knife that way with a switchblade. But this kid from a culture that knows switchblades and uses switchblades,
he would be holding
would not have stabbed the knife that way.
Yeah. He'd be holding it underhand. You're right. Yes. So they reenact that. That's a fun time.
Yeah. They a little spooked as they're like, are you gonna just kill Henry Fonda in this jury?
No, you can't do that. Oh, God. Juror number 7, he's like, I'm sick of all of you guys. I have a baseball game to go to. So he's like, I'm going to change my vote so we can get the fuck out of here or I'm going to be late. Which I totally get, sports. Was he a fan of the Baltimore? I mean, like, I guess.
Orioles.
Yay. Aren't those a great team to go? I don't know.
You might like Orioles, but I like Oreos. Hi. Welcome to our sponsor, Oreos. I don't have a way to go.
I was going to make an Oreo joke, but I'm like, no, I'm better than that. Well, apparently you're not, so.
I'm not.
No.
I'll take any joke I can get. That's why I hang out with you.
Why?
Because you're a joke.
Thank you.
For audiences, Chloe's making a face right now. I don't know why she's just like creating a long pause in the audio as if people can see that. Or as if I'm not going to have to now go through the edit and find this and cut it out. So it's not an awkward pause.
No.
But she's doing it.
Just leave it there just to suffer a little bit.
It'll just confuse people. They'll be like, did it turn off? Did it pause?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I know.
Yeah.
I do the editing. I know.
You do the editing. You know what to do. Yeah.
I experience it.
Oh my gosh. So 1 and 12 changed their votes because 7 changed his vote. Now it only leaves 3, 4, and 10.
Yep.
10 just suddenly, incredibly, just racist against people that live in the slums. So like,
I mean, he kind of had hinted at it before.
Yeah, that's true.
You saw the through line, and then he just snapped.
I mean, that's just like okay, awesome.
Well, cause,
yeah. So they all just kind of like turn away from him, like, we don't know him, we don't associate with you.
That's a really good moment.
Yeah, just like okay, and we're done. In a
movie full of arguing and yelling and all of this, they blatantly present racism, and everyone's just like, nah, fuck you, man. And it goes quiet aside from his yelling. And it's so good. This movie's so good.
Yeah. So Henry number 8's like, hey guys, we all have our personal experiences and prejudices that are probably going to affect your judgment. Well, he's got a point. 4 is like, the lady that saw him killing the dad from across the street, that's solid enough evidence. We'll just believe her. 12 is like, shit, you're right. We're going to switch back my vote. And now it's back to 8-4. Were you getting somewhere? Now we're not.
You got to have that fall before the rise.
True. So 9 sees 4 rubbing his nose. And he's like, oh, you wear glasses, right? Because they're the imprints on your nose there. The witness also has impressions on her nose like that. But she wasn't wearing her glasses. And she wouldn't be able to get them on in time, right? Yeah, because she was in bed. She'd have to get up, put on her glasses, go see. There's not enough time for that. And
she also said she turned over and saw it. So, like, the implication is that she was in bed when she saw the stabbing.
And you're not going to wear your glasses in bed if you're sleeping.
You're not going to wear your glasses in bed.
No,
especially because she said she was trying to go to sleep.
Yes.
Like, it's not like she was laying in bed reading. She was just like, I was tossing and turning, and like, I ain't tossing and turning in my glasses, man.
No, I was fucking throw them off.
So they're like, oh, maybe she's like, one of those women who doesn't want people to know she needs glasses. So even though she like desperately needs them, she just goes around not wearing glasses. Who does that sound like? Chloe?
I don't know. It's crazy, Ben. I don't know. It's wild. Anyways.
For listeners, I don't have great eyesight. I wear glasses. And we were in Seattle, Chloe and I. And I was like, oh, I can't read that sign without my glasses. And Chloe was like, I can't read that sign without my glasses. And I'm like, then why do you never wear glasses? And she's like,
yeah, that's fine.
You're as blind as I am.
That's fine.
Maybe not as blind.
No,
it's probably your eyesight's probably better.
Yeah, I just can't read. The sentence.
You just can't read.
I just can't read. I am illiterate.
How did you watch Parasite?
I am fluent in Korean.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm sorry for assuming that you weren't.
It's fine. We all have our faults.
Interesting cultural choice you made.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Back to the movie. We're almost done. So once they discuss the woman and her glasses, she can't get them on in time. 12, 10, and 4 change their votes to not guilty, so that only leaves 3. He's still guilty, he's guilty, the kid's guilty. He goes on a tirade, but
yep,
it's his own personal experiences, his own relationship with his son kind of reminds him of the defendant and his father, and he's like, dude, kid's guilty.
Parental issues.
It's great. He tears up a photograph of him and his son, and then he breaks down sobbing, and then he's like, not guilty. And we have our unanimous vote. Kid is not guilty. Everyone files out. Henry number 8 gives 3 a jack, and he's like, hey, it's okay, homie. It's okay. And then 8 and 9 introduce each other. Davis and McCardle. And then they leave.
And the movie ends. And we get fun little titles of all the characters with their faces and their names, and you're like, that's who they are.
Like, thank you.
Not their in-universe names, like the actors' names.
Oh yeah, because we were just calling them numbers this entire time.
Could you imagine if they gave you traditional credits and they were like, juror number 1, this guy, juror number 2, this guy, and the audience is just like, what?
I mean, if
who?
I was expecting that, yes. Yeah. So
that's 12 Angry Men. Chloe, I know you weren't a huge fan of it. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I can still see that it's a good movie.
Do you have any general thoughts on the movie?
It's a movie with a lot of talking.
It is a lot of talking.
Yeah.
I have some general thoughts on the movie.
Let's hear your general spin.
You know who's your general thought?
You make a Greer's joke, I'll kill you right now.
Yeah. That's what I'm going for.
I knew it. I was going to do it, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do it, and you do it anyway. So okay.
Anyway.
Yes.
So I love that this movie uses the how hot it is, the temperature thing, because I think because I don't know a way you could tell this story with time cuts unless you're just like, oh, they just got mad and sat around for 2 hours not talking to each other. I think just inherently it works better for it to be continuous. But that also means that you have to have characters who you feel a justification for them to be not wanting to be there after an hour and a half, which realistically it's not that long to be sitting in the jury.
No.
So the temperature was really smart way to make it it's sweltering in there. The fan isn't working. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why this is uncomfortable for you. Also, I love who they chose as their last 3 holdouts, which is, like you were saying, it's the racist, it's the family issues, and it's the analytical one. Yeah. Juror number, I forget which one he is. But because it kind of presents this idea, because if you remove the analytical one, you just had the father issues and the racist, then you're like, oh, the only people who are realistically still against this are the people who are biased. But the analytical one isn't biased. He's respectful. He's calm.
Yeah.
He is looking at things pretty fairly. And the biggest thing he'd been challenged on up until that point is oh, well, you don't remember what movies you went to see 3 days ago. And it's yeah, and you're not under duress. But it's yeah, but this kid also presumably just got back from the movies when they questioned him. I'm not saying that emotional trauma of losing your parent couldn't still warp your mind, but I also feel that's not the strongest argument to make in defense of him. It's yeah, maybe, but also he didn't.
True.
I think in either direction, the kid not knowing what movies he had just seen isn't the strongest case because he is under emotional duress, but also it was the night of.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that it was like that his character, the analytical kind of calm was one of the last holdouts, because it made the case that this isn't a black and white issue of he's guilty or he's not. It presented it more as like, hey, there's like still reasons to think that he's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And even the glasses thing is like, yeah, they convinced him, but also you don't have proof that she wore glasses. Someone said, what if she was wearing sunglasses? And like, they're right. What if she was wearing sunglasses and it left that indentation?
Right.
Like, maybe she just really loves sunglasses and they're always on her face. Like, who knows?
Yeah, you know.
So that was good. Also, I just want to talk about the directing of this movie a bit, which I think is going to be my thing for this month.
Really?
Because we've talked about like character intros. We've talked about like story structure. Mm-hmm. But this month, especially based off of who I'm talking about, and especially based off of who you're going to be talking about, that's a teaser for audiences to stay around. Directing's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to focus on why I think this movie is like, Sidney Lumet made this in one room, pretty much. One room. Okay.
1 room, 12 men.
1 room, 12 men.
Oh God, that's a title for something.
Oh God, that's a porno.
Oh God.
We had the exact thought at the exact same time.
We did. All right, same brain. Love it.
Whereas in that video, they had 12 thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I already mentioned how much I love that Fonda doesn't face the camera in the beginning, so he kind of stands out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to highlight is in the TV version, they don't have the close-ups around the table, because it's partly that's just like a limitation of it being a live teleplay. You have like 3 cameras moving around at once. They can't really get that close. But I think it's a really good use of like connecting with those characters and almost like putting ourselves in the space of that room, because there's so many shots where not only are you like up close and personal with these characters, but they're looking directly at the camera. Mm-hmm. And that is weird. That is a weird feeling, because you're so used to characters never looking straight at you.
Right.
And what I think is like really smart and worth noting about the way they do that is they only ever do it with characters when they're trying to make their case. Mm-hmm. Actually, no, it's only when they're trying to make their case. It's when the characters are trying to, in the beginning, when they're trying to make their case as for like why they think this guy is guilty. And later, it's when one character is like, well, why do you think this? And they're like, well, So it's always the feeling of interrogation. It makes you feel like you're in there interrogating them yourselves. And it breaks the rules of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And it's so good.
You're right.
Also, the use of space is really good. What stood out to me, this isn't like the best example probably, but the thing that just like stood out to me when I was thinking about this was there's one shot where Sidney Lumet gets 5 of them into a medium shot. So it's not like, obviously if you have a wide shot, yeah, you're going to see a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's a medium. It's like their torsos, and he stacks them in such a way that you can see all 5 of them in the shot. And that is like so hard to do in the space that they have. A lesser director would have had like shots of 2 people close-ups at most at a time. Right. Like their mediums would have been 2 to 3 people. That's it. Mm-hmm. Also, if you watch the movie with this pointed out to you, because like it affects the way we watch movies, but it's not something that you like pick up on until probably it's pointed out to you. At least I didn't pick up onto it until it was pointed out to me. When the movie starts, the shots tend to be high and wide. A lot of them are either just above eye level or like way up. Mm-hmm. And as it progresses, it moves to like eye level, and then it moves down. Okay. So a lot of the shots at the end, when it's like super intense, mm-hmm. are really claustrophobic because they're shot under the person up at them. And when you combine that with the rain that comes, it creates like a neo-noir lighting. Oh. So the movie shifts from like a kind of well-lit courtroom drama, like typical feel, to being a lot more of this like intense neo-noir kind of like creepy vibe. It's so good.
True.
So good.
True. That's yeah, you're right. That's pretty cool.
The movie also does a really cool thing of leading us into and out of the court. And that's one of its big differences. There's a couple, but one of its big differences with the teleplay is the teleplay all takes place in the room. You don't see anything before it. You don't see anything after it. It's just that room.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie has that opening where like it like opens on the courthouse and it goes into the courthouse and it goes into the judge to the courtroom. And then it like, follows them out at the end. And I think it's really, really smart for two reasons. One, because when you're following them into it, you see a lot of other people, some people happy. Presumably they just got off of some charge.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, or just got someone charged with something that they thought they deserved. Yeah. You also see people crying like something horrible has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this really good job of like, this jury room is such a small thing. It's one person's life, but this courthouse is huge. Mm-hmm. And there's cases happening all the time. And people's fates are being decided all the time. And the way it leads you into that establishes such a good sense of like, oh, this is one piece of a much larger thing. Justice is happening to everyone all the time. And no matter how well one thing goes, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go that way. And then when you're let out of it, you also have that sense of like, it almost feels like a superhero end where it's like he walks down the steps and it's like opening back up into the world and he reclaims his name. And it's just this really interesting sense of kind of like, of creating this kind of sense of heroics around being a jury member mm-hmm. and like doing that job. And it's just, I love this movie. I know you can tell, but I love this movie.
I'm really glad that you do.
Thank you.
It balances out with my indifference with it, so
Yeah, I know. We can't all have Paddington 2 episodes where it's just supposed to us being like, so
this movie's fantastic.
Perfection.
Yes.
Yeah.
True, you're right.
So Chloe, with all that said, also, we'll get to this later.
Okay.
Chloe, with all that said, what are your 3 favorite scenes from this movie? I realize scene is hard to say when it's like not actually cutting between anything that often. So just like moments. What are your 3 favorite moments in this movie?
Number 1, the part with the fucking switchblade. It's like, what did they say? Wait. So, because they were like, oh, I mean, it's just a coincidence. Or whatever, I'm just saying a coincidence is possible. And he's like, oh, I say it's not possible. And he fucking pulls out an identical one. That was really cool.
Iconic.
That was iconic.
Iconic.
Love that. Good part right there.
Okay. One of mine is in the beginning when the juror number 3, the like antagonist, is talking and he's like talking about his son. And he's going over the thing where he's like, I told him I'd make a man out of him and I made a man out of him. And that man that I made punched me in the face. And just like, there's so much social commentary layered into this movie. But like a big social commentary that I'm a fan of is like criticizing toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. And that is such a good look at like the cyclical nature of it and like how a father putting that expectation on his son can backfire and can like mess with their relationship. And like, obviously that's the driving force behind his entire role within this movie. And it's just like, it's such a good,
yeah,
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments in this movie I like a lot. It's hard to pick like 3 for me, but I like it a lot.
That's fair.
What's your number 2?
Number 2 is when they were, I don't remember who was noticing the impression of the glasses on the other guys. And
it was the old man.
The old man. Yeah. I don't remember the numbers or anything, but.
Juror number 9.
Okay. All right. See, And they were like, well, I just love like dawning realizations like that. And especially courtroom crime dramas or whatever. And they're like, oh, well, if this happened, then the lady clearly couldn't have put her glasses on. It's just like this little like, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense.
I also love how that dialogue is handled.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you're interrupting me, because it seems like such a weird, like innocuous question. And especially in this movie, because we've gotten so many of those like innocuous comments or innocuous questions, it almost feels like, I don't know if it felt that way to you, but I've seen it a million times, so I can't say that like I heard that and went, oh, like they're just doing that again. But I feel like it carries that vibe maybe of, oh, they're just making comments again. Like,
yeah,
they're just getting distracted again. And that's definitely like the way the characters thought it was going.
Right.
And I agree with you. It's a good moment.
Good shit.
So what you're saying is you like the gotchas.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, the gotchas are good.
Those are great.
My second is everyone turning away from the racist rant.
Okay.
I know I talked about that in the, but I just think it's so good. I think it's like, I'm an expert on like racism and how to deal with it. But so I can't say that like, oh, just turn away from them is the way to handle it. Maybe that doesn't work. But within the context of the movie, at least, where like I already said this, but within the context of the movie where they are all talking and yelling at each other and fighting constantly, the fact that A, this unified all of them, and B, their way of handling it wasn't yelling or fighting or kicking or pushing or any of that. It was just them kind of being like, literally, we aren't listening to you. Yeah. We do not care about what you have to say. Your words are meaningless. And then you have juror number 5, I think, the analytical guy who's like still sitting there and he's just like, stop talking. And it's like, oh, it's so good.
Real good.
What is your number 3?
Number 3 is when 3 is about to jump Henry Fonda. He's like, I'll kill you. And A's like,
I knew that was going to be it.
He's like, you don't mean that. Just proving his point from earlier. I love it.
You love the gotchas.
I love the gotchas. You got me there.
I gotcha there.
Yeah. Got it.
Yep. My third favorite scene is the opening in the jury room when like you're seeing them all kind of like wandering around, kind of shooting the shit, just talking to each other. Henry Fonda is looking out the window. Every time I watch this movie, that sets such a mood for me, just because it's led into with that music, which like, I don't know if it's good music by any means, but I've heard it so much and I associate it so heavily with this movie that like shit gives me chills.
Right.
And you like see them all wandering about and you get a sense of like how the camera's moving through the space, and they all have, like I was saying, they all have their dialogue that kind of establishes who they are, but it's also just like, it's so chaotic. And I can't say that every writer has the same challenges, but for me, writing the chaos of that room would be so hard. Writing 3 people talking to each other, not easy by any means, but like manageable. Writing 10 people intersecting and mingling about and moving and like talking at each other, but talking to each other in a way that is both like establishing their character and establishing important details to know, and feels like conflict and is interesting, but also is clearly them like shooting the shit and not paying attention enough. There's so much happening. Layers. And I do not understand how anyone was talented enough to do that.
Man, I don't even know. Crazy.
I know this entire time saying this and you're sitting here and like, I don't like this movie, but I'm oof. For me, that shit hits, man.
Nah, this is your place to just go on and on about how much you love it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite non-protagonist character?
So that would be not including Henry Fonda.
Not including Henry Fonda.
Gotcha. It's like I wasn't sure if that was going to be a qualifier this time. But I wrote...
I feel like he's very clearly the protagonist and very clearly the most likable, so like...
That's true.
Yeah.
But I wrote 8 because he's sexy and 1 because he's funny.
I get that.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Just like, there's like one point I really like, 1 where he's like, all right, we're going to go around the room. I'm going to say the numbers. 1. Like, oh, okay, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's endearing. I like that.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
I had 3 options. Actually, I had 4 options. Fuck.
Okay.
I need to narrow this down.
Wow.
So, number 1 was on my list. So I also like him. I also like juror number 6, mostly for the marmalade. No, that's juror number 7. Sorry. I like juror number 6 for the supposin.
Okay.
I love when he has that dialogue. I also love after that when juror number 3, I think, is being disrespectful to the old man. And juror number 6 is like, how dare you talk to him like that? You say you be disrespectful to him one more time, I'm going to lay you out. And I'm like, this movie's wild. These people are so crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
He's threatening to punch this man in court.
Yeah.
I wish I had that kind of confidence.
I know. If only, man. For it, man.
Yeah. I like juror number 12, the ad guy, because he's like obnoxious and in your face, but he's also kind of sweet. Like he never means any harm. And he's like the moment that sticks out to me is when he's talking to juror number 11 about, I forget what. And then he turns to juror number 1, who's like sitting there quietly. And he's like, what we're talking about is this. And on one hand, it's kind of like obnoxious because it's like, yeah, you're forcing this on another guy. But it also kind of feels respectful where he's like, oh, you're sitting there by yourself, not talking. Let me like bring you into this conversation. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
You seem like an okay dude. A little full of yourself, but an okay dude.
That's fine. Exactly.
Yeah. And obviously I like juror number 9, the old man, because he's cute.
That's true.
He's cute. He's a cute dude.
Adorable.
I think I'm going to have to give my pick to juror number 1 as well. I like him a lot.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Look at us. Look at us.
Who would have thought?
Look at us. Not me. I keep saying something. I forget what it is, but I keep using a word or a phrase. And the way I'm saying it this past weekend, every time Ava's been like, you're saying that like Chloe. And I don't like it.
No, great. You
have corrupted me into your own inflection.
Now I want to know what you've been saying.
I forget what it is. It was like, we can ask Ava. She'll remember probably.
Text
maybe
the group chat right now.
No, I think she's standing in line to vote.
Oh, okay.
It's a long line.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
The curse.
The curse.
So I have some movie specific questions for you.
Oh, okay.
This movie is slower. It's a lot more character driven than a lot of the movies we've seen. I know that you don't like how dialogue heavy it is. So you kind of answered like half this question to begin with. But are you able to pin down exactly what about that you dislike? Like, do you think if this movie moved around more, you'd like it better? Do you think if it had been broken up with like some act? Because like lots of movies are dialogue driven.
True. Yeah.
Some Like It Hot is fairly dialogue driven.
That's fair.
Overall.
But also like things happen.
Things do happen. So do you think that's your issue? Do you think your issue is just that like it's not that it's a lot of talking, but that it's all talking in one location?
I think so. I just get bored easily and I'm like, I need something to happen. Because like if it was more like, I guess more like a modern day kind of crime thing, courtroom drama, whatever, things happen, you see, okay, maybe there'd be like a reenactment of like what went down at the crime scene or whatever. I'd probably be a little more engaged. But
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other question is, obviously I love this movie, so I feel like I answered that question just like I love it.
You love it, really?
Slow old movies, they work for me, man.
That's crazy.
I didn't expect that when I was younger, because I spent most of my life not wanting to watch old movies. My parents didn't do a good job of getting me like convincing me to watch them, so I always was like, old black and white, no thank you.
That's how I am now.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I started watching them and I'm like, these are very good.
These kind of slap.
Yeah. These are quite nice.
True.
Quite fun. How do you feel about like the social issues this movie confronts?
We did kind of
How many of them stood out to you?
Talk about it earlier about like how people are the same. We have not changed at all as a society.
It's wild how much of this like still hits, because I tried to make a note of all the themes that stuck out to me. I probably missed something, but obviously racism. Yeah. Then there's just like the general sense of like justice and how it functions and how it's delivered. Then there's also like generational differences, which it seems like such a modern day issue to have, but it still existed back then. And what's wild is a lot of the dialogue for generational differences feels the same. It doesn't feel like generations disliking the like an older generation disliking the younger generation in different ways. It feels like the exact same.
Just the like, same way, just different language, yeah.
Like, oh, they don't care, they're lazy, they're disrespectful, all these things.
Exactly.
We have obviously toxic masculinity, which is very like, it's amazing how many topics this movie touches on that I also didn't think the 50s like were
right. You would not think toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
Like, not at all, but
racism being as significant in it as it is, true. I wouldn't have expected from the 50s.
Yeah.
Maybe I just have like an overly like critical view of the 50s, but I still wouldn't have expected it.
Yeah,
and then like poverty. There is such a strong through line of like poverty in the slums and poverty in terms of like all these issues that they're presenting. And you can argue that like maybe the jury's doing too much investigating on their own for what is like actually good. But the actual idea of like, hey, this kid is suffering because he doesn't come from money. So his lawyer sucks. And these issues that should have been brought up by the lawyer, even if he is guilty, should have been brought up by the lawyer, weren't. And like, you're looking down on him because he's poor. And also he's not being defended well because he's poor. It's just, this movie hits so many ideas and themes and like comments that I wouldn't have expected from the 50s, both because I didn't expect it to be that, not to use this term, but woke, but also because I didn't expect some of these issues to be like big deals. Like, it's the 50s. You always view the 50s as like financially at least stable.
Right. Crazy shit.
I love it so much.
I know.
It's wild to me how many like ideas and social commentaries they wove into a 1.5 hour long story set in one room.
Yeah. And they did it. And it did pretty well too.
And they did it well. Like, I know you don't like it, but like they did it well.
They did. Yes.
So here's my final question. Do you think the kid did it?
I'm going to say no. Because usually watching any type of these shows, I'm like, okay, they're innocent. I guess innocent until proven guilty. Right. And I don't have enough like evidence. I'm like, for me, I'm like, you know, if he did, I don't, you know, but I don't think so.
I feel like we're biased because we've seen the kid and he has a very innocent face.
True.
I'd be interested to know what I think if I hadn't been given a visual of the kid. Because like there are arguments made that I don't think are like the best. Like, well, how could she have seen him if she was wearing glasses? If I don't think is the best argument, because like you don't know that she wears glasses. You're guessing.
Right.
And that wasn't something that was like challenged. She wasn't challenged on that in court. No one was like, hey, do you wear glasses? And she was like, Like, it's not an educated guess. It's kind of just like,
she's kind of like, maybe.
Yeah. But like the knife not being as rare as they acted like it was, I think is a very good thing to consider. And the idea that there's no way that this old man could have heard it is like great point. Or seen it is a great point. So it's like, I don't know if the kid did it. I think the kid didn't do it, but I don't know. And I like that this movie doesn't ask us to know. It doesn't require us to be sure. Yeah,
it's just like, here's what we know. Here's what they know. Make your own decision. Like, okay.
With all that said, this brings us to what I'm calling 12 angry facts. Do I have 12 facts specifically? An argument could be made yes. An argument could be made no. I'm using the name anyway.
Oh, boy.
I will also not be saying these facts angrily because I don't have the energy to, but I considered it. I did have that thought for the bit.
They would have made things more interesting. Well,
I got tired.
Drink some Red Bull or something. I don't know.
I've never had a energy drink in my life.
I have never had one by itself. Had plenty of vodka Red Bulls.
Vodka Red Bull.
All the time, man.
I don't think I have. I genuinely don't think I've ever had any form of an energy drink, except maybe like 5 Hour Energy, but that's like a shot. I don't count that.
No. All right, let's get some vodka Red Bulls this weekend.
I don't know. I like being able to say I've never had one, though.
All right.
You know what that's like.
I get it.
You understand.
I get it. Okay.
You've never had anything. You've never eaten food.
I've never eaten in my life. You know, that's a fair argument. It's really fun to piss people off with that. Okay. I get it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was originally a live teleplay for CBS. It used a 3-camera setup. And for a long time, they thought that it was lost because do you know what a kinescope is? I didn't expect you to. I only learned about it in film school.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So here's the wild thing about television in the 50s. Television was basically, okay, they didn't essentially record it. They live broadcast it.
Okay.
So there was no film record. There's no actual like film made from shooting. So the only way you could save an episode is by aiming a film camera that actually records film at a screen playing the broadcast. That was called kinescoping. And that is how any television show was preserved for a long time.
Wow.
So a lot of shows were just lost. They aired once and then they were gone.
Mhm.
You never saw them again. They did not exist anymore, which is wild to think about now. But there was a lot of content that just existed for that night, that broadcast, and then it was gone forever. And that was for a long time believed to be the case with the 12 Angry Men teleplay. People thought that there was no kinescope. There was no record of it.
Mhm.
And then in 2003, they found one.
Ooh.
So that's fun.
Nice.
Also, kinescoping was eventually phased out because I Love Lucy. Do you know I Love Lucy? You probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I Love Lucy created the ability to shoot in film. They made it affordable. They also made sync sound. I Love Lucy is incredibly significant for the evolution of television, and no one talks about
Apparently,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. They came in and they're like, we want this. And they're like, you can't have that. And they're like, we will invent a way for us to have that.
Make it happen.
Lucille Ball is a god. Also, her husband was also quite significant in that, but I can't remember his name. Desi. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were incredibly significant for television. They were powerhouses. They also insisted on Desi being able to sing songs in Spanish.
Nice.
So they were like super strong in the progressive movement in television. I Love Lucy deserves a lot more credit than our culture gives it to nowadays. We all just think of it as like, oh, that like old show with like the funny blonde woman. But
but it's like really.
I Love Lucy was significant.
Nice. All right.
Anyway, so yeah, kinescoping. There were a couple big differences in the teleplay. I already mentioned that the teleplay was only in the jury room, but also it doesn't explicitly state that they find him not guilty. They never actually show the not guilty vote from juror number 3. The script for it said that it does.
Okay.
So you could argue that like it was meant to be. I mean, like it was meant to be from the script. Now the director changed that. Some people would argue like, oh, the director changed it because he wanted ambiguity. Some people also argue the director changed it because he wanted kind of like a bookend that felt mirror to the beginning. So the way the teleplay opened was a shot of the room empty, and then it moved into the door, and then the door opened and like everyone came in.
Okay.
And the way it ended was the door closes and then it pulls back out to that wide shot of the room at the end. So it might have just been that he was like, the guy already said not guilty. We don't need to show the note.
Yeah.
I just want this like mirror image.
I get
But
that.
technically speaking, never explicitly says it. It is more vague.
Fascinating. Okay.
It also only, because like you don't see the judge, it implies that the kid is not white, but it never tells you the kid is not white.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can kind of assume that from, he's from the slums. And
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
And just like the racism commentary and stuff. But like, you could argue in the original that he was going off against people in the slums and not specifically going off against like a race. But the tangent does still sound very racist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why it's a tangent and not rant. Anyway, back then, courtroom dramas were not uncommon, but this was the first to look at it through the eyes of the jury and not through like the traditional courtroom dramas where it's like, you know, people in a courtroom arguing. Maybe they have flashbacks like you mentioned.
Yeah.
This movie has been adapted a bunch. It's been adapted into a German version, a Japanese version, a Hindi version, a Russian version, a Chinese version, and a Kannada version, which is a South Indian language.
Interesting. I need to watch the Russian version right now.
It is. Oh my God. It's called 12. It came out in 2007.
Okay.
It also has been not adapted, but referenced and used as like a foundation in a lot of TV episodes. Veronica Mars had an episode that references it where Veronica's on a jury, but it kind of flips the script where everyone believes someone is innocent and Veronica's the only one who believes they're guilty.
Okay.
There's also a 30-minute long Amy Schumer episode of Inside Amy Schumer called 12 Angry Men Inside Amy Schumer. And yeah, but it is a 12 people jury room kind of thing. I don't remember if it's actually a jury that they're on. I don't know. Kumail Nanjiani's in that episode.
Oh, okay, nice.
He's one of the guys. Yeah, so you know, throw back to our old stuff. It's also been parodied in Flintstones, Family Guy, Simpsons, Happy Days, Odd Couple, Malcolm in the Middle, The Odd Couple again, and King of the Hill.
Makes sense.
I may have just written The Odd Couple twice. I don't know. It probably wasn't referenced 2 times by the same thing.
You never know.
You get the point, though. Yeah. Referenced a lot. There's also a 1997 version of it that was made with Jack Lemmon playing juror number 8. Jack Lemmon of Some Like It Hot playing Jerry.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why they decided to remake it. I don't want to watch it.
I mean, why do they remake anything? So
it wasn't successful. So
apparently, yeah.
Yeah. It also has a successful stage production that was created in the 90s and has been revived over time throughout existence, period, history. I don't know. Words. That makes sense, though.
Oh, yeah.
One room courtroom drama. This movie works very well as a play.
I can see why, yes.
Yeah. It was released, as I've said, in 1957. It has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes with 52 reviews.
Crazy.
It made, I don't know how much at the box office. I cannot find a record of it. I know it wasn't super successful financially in the States. It was successful enough internationally to make some profit, but it wasn't like a big hit. Mm-hmm. It was critically acclaimed, though, and it was also very cheap, as I mentioned.
I can assume,
it was made for $350,000.
Nice.
Which is like $2 million in today's money, but still quite cheap.
Super cheap, yeah.
Actually, it's $3.2 million in today's money. I wrote that down.
Okay.
But yes, it's critically acclaimed. It was nominated for Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It lost all three categories to lost to Bridge on the River Kwai, which I've not seen, but I've heard of, so it's probably good.
Mm-hmm.
Who can say? It is also on... So you remember the American Film Institute list that we also talked about for Some Like It Hot?
Vaguely, yes. Yeah.
Yes. It is on a bunch of their lists.
Okay.
Juror number 8 is their 28th greatest movie heroes.
All right.
It is the 42nd most inspiring film in their inspiring films list. It is 88th in their most heart-pounding films list. Heart-pounding. Was your heart pounding, Chloe?
No, not at all.
Yeah. You blockbuster simpleton.
Yep, that's me.
It is 87th on their list of best films of the past 100 years. And it is ranked as the second best courtroom drama behind To Kill a Mockingbird. However, it is the highest ranked courtroom drama in Rotten Tomatoes' 100 Best Movies.
Nice. Very nice.
Now, before we dive into all the games, I'm going to just do trivia right now because I have the question up.
Okay.
We're doing one trivia question because Logan isn't here and he never will be again. Maybe he will come back as a guest once in a while. Who fucking knows? Yes. But the point is, we don't really need to do a ton of trivia anymore because there's nothing to compete against. So I have one. How many movies does Sidney Lumet have in the Criterion collection?
Ooh. That list is very long too. Oh God.
I'll tell you. I'll give you this. Okay. Not many directors have a ton. Even if the directors are well regarded, generally Criterion is trying to be diverse.
Yeah.
So unless you're Akira Kurosawa, you're probably not going to have a
whole lot.
Tons.
Okay, I'm gonna guess he's got 2.
You're close. It's 3.
Damn it. Okay.
But 2 of them just came out.
Oh, okay.
They just got added to the collection. For a long time, it was just 12 Angry Men.
Gotcha.
You also have to factor in that not every company wants to let Criterion release their movie. So even if Casablanca is a really important movie, but it's not on Criterion, and I have to imagine it's because Warner Brothers was just nah, man.
Okay, all right.
We don't want that.
I get it, yeah.
So, as I said, it is 3. That includes 12 Angry Men. It also includes Fugitive Kind, which is a Western, I believe. I haven't seen it. And Failsafe, which I have seen. Failsafe is terrifying.
Oh, God.
It's not a horror movie. Okay. But do you know what Dr. Strangelove is?
Uh-huh.
Have you seen Dr. Strangelove? Do you know what it's about?
Nope.
Okay. So Dr. Strangelove and Failsafe are both based on the same book. I forget what it's called, but they're loose adaptations. They tell very different... They have the same basic structural premise, but they tell very different stories in that. And the way that works is Dr. Strangelove is kind of a parody. It's about nuclear warfare and war, it's about America's Cold War with Russia. But Dr. Strangelove looks at it as, hey, people are stupid and people in power are stupid. And if you let those stupid people have free reign, they will get us killed. So Dr. Strangelove is a parody, a satire about government leaders leading us into nuclear Armageddon.
Okay.
It's good. I haven't seen it. I actually own the Criterion of it, but I have yet to watch it.
All right.
But Failsafe is different because Failsafe says, hey, because Dr. Strangelove is basically saying it's the actions of a person that will be our downfall.
Mm-hmm.
But that also inherently says, hey, people can prevent it if they're smart enough, if they stop the stupid people. Someone could argue that like you'll never be able to stop all the stupid people. Eventually someone will be in a position of power and use it and will be doomed to Donald Trump. But that is the inherent argument, is that it's the actions of a person. Mm-hmm. Failsafe says something different. Failsafe, which is also starring Henry Fonda,
shout out,
says, hey, we doomed ourselves the second we made weapons that could destroy the planet. Its argument is essentially too much technology goes into this. There's too much room for miscommunication. There's too much complexity in our government system that it doesn't matter how well-intentioned someone is. It doesn't matter how good-hearted someone is. The second we created weapons that could wipe out cities, we doomed ourselves and we're fucked.
Oh boy.
So the premise of Failsafe is basically, hey, something goes like a communication error has happened. Mm-hmm. This that is disrupting a system that America has in place that is essentially telling some of our soldiers to launch nukes.
Oh God.
And they're trying to stop these because they're in the air. They're in ships. Mm-hmm. They're trying to communicate with these ships to convince them to stop. But there's like all these different systems in place and these rules that they're supposed to adhere to make sure that they can launch nukes and if they need to, and that there can't be. It's
oh God, sounds
terrifying.
Stressful as hell.
Its basic theme. Its entire theme is basically, hey, you can't stop this.
Oh God.
Eventually a mistake will happen. Something will go wrong and we will be fucked.
Oh great. Okay, cool. Love it.
It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. Terrifying. Like it's terrifying, but it's
oh boy.
So that's Failsafe. That is the third movie of Sidney Lumet's in it. Chloe, this brings us to the fun games, to the you-focused games. This brings us, of course, to Nailed It with Chloe Naylor.
There's me.
Chloe, we're going to do more than just review the villain this time. We're going to review the hero and the villain.
Whoa.
So we'll kick it off with the villain, right? We're changing it up.
Crazy.
I feel like, I don't know, in a weird way, I feel like Juror number 8 kind of has like anti-hero energy.
Oh yeah, no, there's a reason why I found him sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there would be. Mm-hmm. So before we get into that though, review Juror number 3's sexiness.
So I don't really find him all that sexy.
I didn't think you would. No. That's part of the reason I added Henry
That's
Fonda.
fair. Yeah, because he doesn't have like any looks or that I'm like a fan of or like personality either.
Yeah.
He doesn't fit what my type is, you know?
And he has like father-son issues, but he has father-son issues from the perspective of a father.
Yeah.
Not as a son. He doesn't have daddy issues.
Daddy issues, which usually like the guys with the daddy issues, but
I know.
He's the daddy issue. So
he's the daddy.
No. That's Henry Fonda.
That is true.
Which he's much sexier.
He is. Henry Fonda's a good-looking man.
Good-looking man.
So tell me about Juror number 8. Review Juror number 8's sexiness.
Boy, howdy. Henry Fonda's fantastic to look at.
He is.
So glad he's the protagonist and the focus is on him. So I'm like, okay, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And you're right, he does have the anti-hero kind of vibes, which is I'm always a fan of. They're not straight up.
He also kind of has that like morally gray vibe where he's not being like, we need to uphold. He's not. I mean, he is saying we need to uphold justice, but he's not sitting there going like this is right and this is wrong. He's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, let's talk about it. Yeah,
exactly. Because if he was like straight up like
energy to him,
whatever, like lawful good or whatever, I wouldn't be a fan. He's not that. Uh-huh.
He's chaotic.
Exactly. Though. That's what I'm a fan of. Love that shit. Chaotic energy. Yes.
My upcoming D&D character is chaotic.
Yeah. Great.
For audiences, Chloe and I will be on Dungeons and Dragons podcast at OK Beast. Check it out. I don't know when it's coming out, but soon. This month. Keep your eyes out this month. At some point, it'll drop. If you follow us on Twitter, it'll be announced.
Yeah, 100%. I will not be able to shut up about my character at some point. So
exciting.
Yes. Anyways, what were we talking about? Henry Fonda. He's great.
We were talking about Henry Fonda's sexiness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's sexy. Morally gay. Kind of good. We're good.
So when you move to LA, what you're saying is, or when you're visiting LA, I guess, but like I feel like it's more feasible when you move here. What you're saying is you should go to the Fonda Theater, and then you can say, Fonda, I'm inside of you.
That is a thing that I can do. Yes.
That is a thing that you can do, and I'm going to make you do
Perfect.
now. Also, because a lot of concerts happen there. It's a very common concert venue. Like, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Just remind me, because I will
like, a lot of like the small concerts, you know, where it's like the like the Ally and AJs, the Carly Rae Jepsons, the Lawrences, those kind of concerts happen in the Fonda Theater a lot.
I've been to one of those in a while.
Those are good. Those are my favorite kind of concerts.
They are my favorites too. It's been a while because I had this conversation with my mom the other night. It's like, I can't remember the last concert I've been to.
Well, I know the next concert you'll be to.
That's true. I know that too. Thank God. I'm excited.
We're out here forcing Chloe to live.
Thank God. Listen.
And do things.
I can't go to concerts out here because I have no one to go with unless I go with my mother. And One Direction is not on tour anymore, so.
Can you go with a sibling? You have siblings?
Yeah, but like, they would. Because it depends on who I would see. Calvin doesn't like to leave the house. True. Kaylee is very picky. Chase is like 6 years old.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that. I took my sister to Carly Rae Jepsen because Ava had to bail, and Marie was like, I don't enjoy this. And I was like, first of all, your taste is trash then. But also, like I get that. She's not. Right. I mean, to be fair, I feel like experiencing some artists for the first time through concert isn't always the best. Some artists, it's better to know them going in and then be like, yeah. Whereas other artists, it's better to experience them live first because they're better live. Like Ally and AJ.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Chloe, this brings us to executive action. If you could change something about this movie, what would you change?
Add a little action. How about that? I know this is like objectively a really good movie and it's like perfect on its own. Just for my own personal enjoyment, if I had to edit something that was just my copy, I guess like more of the actual courtroom scenes and talking about the crime. So I want to see more of that. And like the lawyers talking. Because that's what I love about crime shit. The jury, I don't care about, but.
Wouldn't that make the jury scene like repetitive though?
Absolutely, yeah. I guess it depends.
So you're saying I'm
just completely changing the whole movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair though. Like that's the point of this set. Because I've said this many times. The point of executive action is not for us to say that we know better or that we think this is like better. It's for us to express how something does or does not work for us specifically. So even though like I fully disagree with you and I think that would be a much worse movie.
Oh, it absolutely would be.
We also aren't sitting here saying we know how to make a better movie. No. We're just saying, you know, because like, yeah, I could probably nitpick decisions that Reginald Rose made in writing this. Like there's a couple characters that I would like to see maybe a bit more fleshed out, but also this movie is so tight and well paced that realistically my executive action is nothing. I would do nothing to this movie.
That's perfectly
If
valid.
I were a producer, I would leave it be. There is no point that I can point to where I'm like, no.
I would take this like near perfect movie and just completely annihilate it for my own enjoyment.
Yeah, you would gut it.
And I would have fun with it and everybody else would hate me, which is fine. Nice. Yeah.
That can be your career. Come to LA, get a job in Hollywood, just ruin potentially good movies.
I love it. Okay, perfect. I'm there.
A lot of producers do that for a living, man.
Listen, look at what they're doing with literally any franchise right now. It's fine. I'll
Artemis Fowl.
I'm sorry. I'm glad I never read any of those.
I hate it.
Wow, I'd be real pissed off.
So for listeners, Artemis Fowl is a book series, a children's book series that I read as a kid. And the basic premise, I told Chloe about this via text a couple days ago. I'm going to make her listen to it again. The basic premise of Artemis Fowl, at least book one. So like as the story goes, he experiences like some redemption. He becomes a lot more of an anti-hero than like a straight villain. But the way Artemis Fowl works is it's told from his perspective. It's told from two perspectives. It's told from his and from his enemy's perspective. But the thing is, his enemies are the good guys. He's the bad guy. Artemis Fowl is a 10-year-old genius who is rich as all hell. His father is missing and has been missing for a long time. And his mother is sick and basically like non-existent. he is almost exclusively raised by his butler. It does have Batman vibes, if that's what you're thinking. And he discovers that, so there's a fairy world, but the fairy world is different than the way we think of it. When you think of like, Chloe, what do you think of when you think of fairy? Like magical and stuff, right?
Little like fucking little pixies or whatever.
That's not how this works.
Okay, yeah.
In this world, fairies are kind of like cute. I don't know how to explain it. Almost like a cute elf, but small. Like, okay, imagine elves from Harry Potter.
Okay.
The house elves. That kind of has like the fairy vibe. A bit different, but like more like that. Like, you know, like that size, kind of like big ears kind of thing. Cuter, and they have wings, but generally that's a good comparison.
I'm Dobby with wings. Got it.
Yeah. And they live underground because they used to live on Earth long ago, but humans drove them into hiding. So they moved underground. Okay. But they created an entire underground civilization.
All right.
And they're not magical. They're just super technologically advanced. Like they make us look like idiots in comparison. Nice. So they have this whole underground technological world. Artemis Fowl discovers that it exists because he's smart. Not for any other reason, but because he's smart. And he goes underground, steals something, I forget what it is. And then basically the majority of the book is him and the fairies in a standoff at his mansion.
Nice.
He is not a good person. Okay. Like later books kind of explain why he did what he did with like morally justifiable reasons. Like he wants to help cure his sick mom and yada, yada, yada. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Point is, Artemis Fowl is kind of a dick. Okay. Even when he's like on the right side, he's kind of a dick. He's smart and kind of rude. And he eventually comes to care for his friends and be like empathetic towards his friends, or try to be at least. But he's still not a good person, and he'll still be a dick to anyone he doesn't care about. And this fucking movie comes along, and I'm excited because I'm like, Artemis Fowl, yeah, like we're finally getting something. I don't have like high hopes, but like maybe it'll be decent, you know?
Yeah, it'll be okay.
Kenneth Branagh's not a bad director,
right?
And then, they release a trailer, and they're like, "Hey, Artemis, your dad, he comes from a long line of thieves who interacted with the fairy world. So now Artemis Fowl hasn't discovered the fairy world on his own. He comes from a line of people who know the fairy world." And then they're like, "Hey, Artemis, the fairy world is in danger. You are tasked with saving it." So now he's teaming up with Holly, the fairy that's supposed to be his enemy, who works for the fairy police. And like, I'm not saying he and Holly don't become friends eventually. I'm not saying the fairy world is never threatened and he doesn't save it eventually. But that is not how it starts. He's not a good kid who is smart and tasked with saving the fairy world. He is a dick who eventually discovers... He's a dick who discovers the fairy world, does bad things, eventually gets redeemed and becomes friends with the fairy world and helps them. But like, that's not the core of him. That isn't how he starts. Chloe.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Like, the most interesting thing about those books is that its title character is not a good person. And it's not just like an adult movie where the title character is a bad person. It is a kid's book where a 10-year-old sucks.
Nice. Kids suck. And apparently not according to the movie, though. All right.
I hate it.
So sorry for your loss.
There's a shot in the trailer where Holly meets Artemis for the first time. She's like, "I'm Holly, your friend your ally on the other side." And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
God, it's not Artemis Fowl. More like...
I hate it so much.
Artemis.
Anyways,
Ha ha ha.
More like Fowl. You really didn't need to go that much of a stretch, but I respect the Fartimus. I appreciate that.
Fowl.
I didn't
there
think
you go.
of that. Fartimus Fowl. The farts be foul.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh God.
So that's everything for games, facts, recaps, the whole bunch of it. Chloe, what are your closing thoughts on 12 Angry Men?
I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it and like.
I'd be really interested to see you rewatching it with like all the things I forced you to consider.
Yeah. So there's things that I didn't know. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's a cool. Yeah.
Also, did you watch it on your phone?
On my iPad.
Oh God.
It's a step up.
It's better at least.
You know?
It's a step up. I'll take it.
Step up the movie.
Oh God.
No. Yeah, because usually I have to watch these while I'm at work. So iPad.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But maybe I'll have to go back and because
I'd love to hear your like second take thoughts. Also, because I feel like some movies just if you're not accustomed to them or used to them, the first viewing is hard to like them.
Right.
And I've had that with some of my favorite things. Like I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but like Moonrise Kingdom, I could not get into the first time. And then I watched it a second time and I was like, I'm in love with this movie.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So like maybe I'll watch it a second time and be like, oh, we talked about that. Okay, this is a fantastic movie. I love it now. So, you know.
Cinema.
Cinema. So we'll see. I don't know. But I understand that it is an objectively very good movie, and I just personally don't like it.
I get it.
Upon first viewing.
I understand. As I said, I love it so much. It's a goodie. It's probably in my top 5 movies of all time.
Nice.
I would die for this. If we hadn't talked about Paddington 2 already, this would be my favorite movie we've talked about so far.
All right.
I love how simple it is. I love how much I engage with it because of how simple it is. Like if you came up to me before I'd seen this movie and you said, hey, you want to watch a movie about 12 people in a jury room for an hour and a half? I'd be like, no, I actively don't want to see that.
No, it sounds horrible.
But it's energetic somehow. It's brilliantly acted. It's brilliantly directed. It's brilliantly written. It is funny at times. It's dramatic at times. Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
They do be angry.
They do be angry. There's some angry men.
Yeah.
Chloe, if people liked this movie, what do you think they should watch? I realize you don't like this movie, so this is probably a hard question to ask you. I
thought of 2 things while I was watching it.
Oh, boy.
One was, I think you mentioned it earlier, was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
Black and white, courtroom. Those are 2.
Also a classic.
Also a classic.
Yeah.
Remember watching that and hating it in high school, so, you know. Hating classic movies. It's a good time.
Chloe, an hour ago, I don't know. I guess if it was like a traditional courtroom drama with like the actual court proceedings, maybe I'd like it. Chloe now. So you know that actual courtroom drama with actual court proceedings that is also considered one of the best courtroom dramas of all time? I hate it.
Listen, I watched it in high school.
I get it. I didn't like Wall-E the first time I watched it. Like some movies, you just going back to what we said, you need to watch it twice.
Just need to watch it twice. Yeah. Second one was a TV show, How to Get Away with Murder, because there's a specific arc where they were picking the jury or something, and I just love that shit. I liked that show before it went off the rails, and I stopped watching it.
Okay.
Because they, spoilers, killed the main character. So
I like that you're recommending TV shows. I'm gonna recommend a TV show.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Leverage?
I have, yes.
Yes. So, have you seen Leverage?
I have not seen it.
Or do you know what it is? Do you know what happens in it?
I don't think that I do.
Okay, so Leverage is really fun. You would like Leverage because it's an entire show built on gotchas. Not courtroom gotchas, but gotchas.
Okay.
So basically, the conceit of Leverage is it's kind of a heist movie. But in episodes and like not exactly. Basically, what Leverage is about is this guy was he used to work for a insurance company. And his job was to investigate art insurance fraud. So they kind of treat it as like an Indiana Jones thing where it's like he traveled the world hunting down art thieves and stuff. And he was like good at it.
Yeah.
And then his son died. And he died because he was sick. And the insurance company that this guy worked for would not pay for the medical treatment that he needed because the American healthcare system is a mess.
Yeah.
And insurance companies are evil. Capitalism is the devil.
Again, continuing with the running theme. Yep.
So basically, he gets recruited by this guy who works for who's like the CEO of an airplane company. And he's like, hey, this other company stole from me. And I can't really prove it in a court of law. So I need you to run this team of thieves to go steal it back for me. And so he does that. And they end up like staying together as a team. There's a hacker, a thief, a grifter, which is to say like a con artist, a actress, like Muscles, the fighting type, and then him, the mastermind. And they become this team they call Leverage. And basically what they do is they're like, hey, we've been using, like, he's been a good guy, but the others have been using their skills for like bad.
Mhm.
But they realized that they could make a lot of money off of taking down corrupt corporations and people by like betting against their fall. So if they're like, hey, we're going to short this stock of a company that we're about to take down, we can make a lot of money. So they start providing this service where people who are being wronged by the wealthy and the elite, who can't afford the jury, who can't afford the lawyers necessary, or like just don't have the evidence to prove it, or just like the cops are in the pocket of the company, they come to this team, and the team stage cons to incriminate or to steal from these companies. So there's a lot of gotchas where it's like they run a long con, and at the end the bad guy sees them and realizes all these people that they've been working with are all like a team, and they've been conned, and they're going to jail now, or their empire's falling apart, or they just got fired. It's great.
Okay. And my curiosity, now you have my attention. Okay. All right.
So Leverage is very fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It is also like, if you enjoy the gotcha moments in this movie, I think that would be good for it. It also has a jury episode, which is why I initially thought of it.
Nice.
So that's fun. There's a really fun moment at the end of the jury episode where there's like this one lady who her job is basically to game. She's working for the accused.
Whoa, okay.
Or maybe she's working for the accuser. I don't remember. She's working for one of the bad guys. And her job is to like make sure the jury goes in the way she wants. So she's like pulling strings and like doing all this.
Okay.
And the Leverage team realize she's doing that, and they're like, we can beat her at our own game. So she thinks she's working in the shadows, but they're working in her shadows. So like she loses eventually, and she's like, what the fuck just happened? And then the mastermind walks up and is holding a chess piece, like the king. Yeah. And then, because she's been using a chess metaphors the entire time, and he drops it, and she's like, what just happened?
Nice.
It's great.
I'm a fan
it's
of
so
that.
good.
Oh man, I'm gonna go watch it now.
Leverage is a fun time. So that's my recommendation if people want TV shows. If people want movies, like, I try to avoid just recommending the work of the same person, but like, watch Dog Day Afternoon. It's very good. It's also set in one location for the most part. It's all set during a bank robbery. Our protagonist is the bank robber, or bank robbers, I guess. Al Pacino is the main actor.
Nice.
And it has an underlying social commentary, because of course it does, about gay rights.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
Sidney Lumet, woke director.
Woke king.
Of the
Thank
ages.
You.
Woke king. Chloe, before we leave, what's one cool thing you've done or seen this week?
I watched 8 straight hours of The Bachelor on Friday.
Oh my god.
I wanted to catch up because like the finale is next week, so like, you know.
For audiences, the way Chloe said this, and then her face just became this like state of pure bliss.
Really? That was bliss?
It looked
I
blissful.
was not conveying bliss. That was well, no.
It looked like what's what I'm looking for? It looked like like, you know, in some TV shows and movies where like the like sci-fi and fantasy where everyone's put into a state of bliss and it's like bad, and they're kind of in this like ignorant, like almost like unaware state. They're oblivious, like oblivious bliss.
Okay. Like
that's how you looked. You looked like you looked like you just like lost yourself to the age of Bachelor, and you're like, this is neither good nor bad anymore, but I am here. I am in a haze.
It's so
that's the better
stupid.
word.
I like seeing the other girls have their drama, just crying over this one boy or this one white boy. Just like, come on, really? Really dumb.
Isn't one of the girls crazy?
They're all crazy.
But isn't one of them like crazier? I feel like her name was Victoria. I could be
She's
wrong.
still there. Yeah, she's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Another one of the girls is saving herself for marriage. And I'm like, why are you on The Bachelor then? It seemed not great.
I've also heard, I did some reading on The Bachelor because I was like, curious.
Yeah.
And by reading on The Bachelor, I mean, I read one article about the current Bachelor, but they referenced past things. So I like learned other stuff. Doesn't The Bachelor do that? They have like the one virgin and then they're like, look, the virgin.
I guess, yeah. And it's like, that's your personality trait. You've never had sex.
Some people are virgins. Some people want to fuck General Grievous. You know, we all have it. We all got our brand.
We all have our, exactly. I also watched Better Call Saul and Cowboy Bebop, so I've made up for The Bachelor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Never seen Cowboy Bebop.
I love the vibes. Sexy crime vibes in space? Yes, please, and thank you.
Ooh. It's like a space western, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I need to get around to it.
Absolutely. Spike is hot
There's
and
too
the
much
theme
content.
song slaps, so. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I watched the second episode of Clone Wars season 7.
Oh, I also did that, but yeah, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. I definitely miss having like. I'm glad Anakin's there now, but I do miss having like Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I understand that the clones are a big part of the story. I get why they led with that. It teases out the return of these characters we love so much. But God, do I want Ahsoka?
I know,
and
I miss
Anakin
her
and
so
Obi-Wan.
much, dude. Yes. I like the little...
Ahsoka is the best character in Star Wars.
I mean, yes.
And I need it.
True. People keep telling me that like Grievous is not going to show up at all this season, and I'm like, you better shut your whore mouth.
We'll see.
He's fucking the main villain.
He could.
Like, antagonist.
I'm really excited to see if they essentially redo Revenge of the Sith.
I wonder. Because there's definitely going to be overlap.
Yeah. I'd be really interested because I want them to. Yeah. Because I love Anakin so much in Clone Wars. He's so good. And every time I see him, especially now as we're inching closer and closer to his fall, I get emotional about the fact that he falls to the dark side. And I'm like, but I haven't seen the actual fall in a way that I'm happy with.
Oh, God.
So it's more of this like conceptual feeling. So what if like just part of me so desperately wants Clone Wars to somehow give me his actual descent into the dark side in a way that is satisfying and also heartbreaking.
Cool, because what we need is more crying over Star Wars, yes.
I'm okay with crying over Star Wars if it's like for good storytelling.
If it's, you're right, if it's Clone Wars, I will do anything for it.
Yeah. Also, Obi-Wan fully telling him he knows about Padme.
I know. Oh,
so good.
It was so good.
So
I was like, oh,
good. I have waited so long for that moment.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because
I can't believe I'm a prequels fan.
Yes. Welcome to the...
I can't believe Clone Wars did this to me. I mean, not welcome. I've been here for a while because I've,
that's true. Well,
seen Clone Wars, but I'm thinking about it more now.
Yes.
Fucking...
They're great.
Love Anakin Skywalker so much.
He's great.
Never thought I'd say that when the movies were coming out.
I know. Oh my God. Whew. Imagine saying that as soon as Attack of the Clones came out. Okay. Yeah.
Chloe, this has been That One We Film Class. Next week, we are talking about your choice for Criterion movies, which is, it's such a pick. Criterion is a company that preserves some of the most important movies from some of the most significant creators, directors, and actors of our time. And sometimes they make interesting picks. I respect those picks. I think it's cool that they go for some different choices. But of fucking course, Chloe chose this because for our second Criterion movie, we're moving all the way away from 12 Angry Men, and we were talking about Michael Bay's Armageddon.
Yes.
This is going to be a time.
It's going to be good.
Chloe, I can't wait for me to Chloe.
Yeah.
I'm going to subject you to so much Michael Bay lore.
Oh boy.
I hope you know that.
Good.
I'm going to analyze American auteur Michael Bay.
Yep.
And it's thanks to you.
You're very welcome.
I'm kind of surprised our first Michael Bay movie isn't a Transformers movie.
I am surprised too. It hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's the way it has come up. We had 2000s movies you could have.
I could have, but also we have like a robots theme coming up.
We do have a robots theme coming up. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's fair.
And also like favorite movies. So like, you know.
Yeah. Chloe, if people have enjoyed this, and they want to hear more from us, from our voices, from our thoughts, from our words, where can they find us? Where can they find you?
Boy, you can find me everywhere at Echo Clo. That is on Twitter, that's on Twitch, that's Instagram, Letterboxd with more movie thoughts and opinions. Not really, it's just dumb jokes I put for reviews of every movie I watch, and they're great.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can find me at Mr_BentoBox on Twitter, at Mr. BentoBox on anything else. That is Letterboxd, that is Instagram, and that is TikTok. Still plugging away at that TikTok because of you.
I always forget to mention that too. I am also on TikTok, but you follow Ben. He makes the good content.
Like I've gotten my first decently successful TikTok.
Nice. Proud of you.
I'm happy. It got 11.5 thousand views.
Nice.
And 2,000 likes.
Perfect.
Is it about Bollywood movie Om Shanti Om? Yes, it is.
Oh my God. I love that for you.
Oh my God.
And the podcast already got.
We're getting there. Chloe, also, next week, when we talk about Armageddon, we're going to be in the same location.
We are. We're going to be recording together in the same room.
We're going to have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I sure don't know how.
How do you cancel audio bleed?
You
from mic to mic.
Asking me like I have any experience in this.
I mean, you have been on a live podcast with multiple mics.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, that was like a whole thing.
You were like an up and comer or something. People thought you had like potential. Now you're here.
Now I'm here. And I completely forgot that I was on Kind of Funny for a minute there. Wow. I don't know how they do that.
Okay, I'll ask someone. We'll find out.
We'll get this figured out. We'll be in the same city. It's fine.
That's true.
Yeah.
If people like this podcast, they can rate us and review us on iTunes. They can subscribe to us on whichever platform they prefer. Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, obviously. You can also support That Nerdy Site on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. You can also find other things that we're doing at thatnerdysite.com. And as Chloe and I have mentioned, we will be on a Dungeons and Dragons podcast over at OK Beast coming up soon. You can find us there as well. Also, just check out OK Beast because they make really cool content. They just made they're trying to do documentaries about why people like video games. Super cool.
Cool.
Super interesting.
Good shit over there.
Yeah. This has been That Wannabe Film Class. Thank you so much for tuning in. 12 Angry Men is one of the best movies ever made.
Don't be angry. Not great.
Don't be angry.